So like all projects using Damascus steel, the first thing we have to do is create the billet. So here I'm using my plasma cutter, cutting up some thicker 15N20 that I'll mix in with some thinner stock that I have shown here of 1080. And this is what the initial billet looked like. We drew that out, as you can see here, fairly, squaring it up, and then we restacked it, and here I added thicker sections of 15N20 to give me kind of a bolder pattern. All told, this was only about 28 layers, if I remember correctly. And then this was the fun, interesting, and tough part, twisting the billet itself. I left this thing about an inch and a quarter square, and even as hot as it was, this was a fair amount of work to twist. You can see I'm struggling with it a bit, I think is a fair assumption, and my wrench keeps popping off. Had to tighten it up several times, and it took me several heats to actually get a twist that I was happy with at the time. In the future, I think I would actually probably add at least 2 times the twist based on what the final pattern looked like. Final bit of twisting. I think at the end of the day I had about 8 to 10 total revolutions. Honestly, I didn't count. It did give me an interesting pattern that you saw in the beginning, and you'll see here at the end of the film. Again, hindsight, I probably should have gotten it a wee bit hotter and twisted it a wee bit more. But once we clean this up and square it up, we're back towards making a knife. So here I have the twisted billet, and I'm literally just squaring it back up, flattening out all the corners that, as you can imagine, as they wrap around, kind of give it a more of a round shape and ridges, if you will, along it. Now some of these are going to end up being, cold shuts or other little flaws on the surfaces. So once we get it all squared up and drawn out, we'll take it and grind it some more. So after getting the billet square and flat, you can see it here, and then we take it, grind off a lot of scale and, again, possible flaws along the edges, just to get a nice clean billet that then we can work with. So my goal ultimately was to make 3 knives of similar size and shape, and so here you can see me putting in the tang on one of them. These will be full tang knives, like kind of a classic chef's knife look is what I was going for. So just working through that. As you saw in the beginning picture, one of these knives ended up being a little bit shorter, and that was because I ended up finding some delams and taking some of the material away until I had good steel. But overall, just shaping the knives. Obviously had to do this 3 times. To get all the way through. Once I had the rough shape forged in with the press, I started to do some hand forging here. Here I'm trying to just narrow out the edge of the blade, draw out the width a little bit more, and then again repeating this 3 times on once for each of the knives. Again, just trying to get a little bit more width and then thinning out that edge that I'll eventually grind down to be the cutting surface. then ultimately forging in a bit of the tip shape. We'll finalize this with some grinding, but I kind of wanted to hammer most of this in, again, just to kind of save the pattern and take advantage of the Damascus without grinding it away. Once the tip and the edge were hammered in, you can see sometimes the steel will bend and warp. I love this video here just because it shows how much something can twist and bend, and even though it's steel, you can reshape it, bring it back to the profile that you were looking for. A couple of just highlights from grinding. This always looks, I think, really easy when I watch other people do it. And just to give you a sense, I literally spent about a day and a half doing this, getting things up to ultimately do about a 400 grit, straightening them, getting the profile in. So it's actually quite a bit of work. Went through quite a few belts. And now, of course, the moment that we've all been waiting for, quenching them, making sure nothing snaps. Things stay straight. Actually had very good luck with these. And as you can see, we had a nice snowy day here in Michigan, and so I thought this was a great background to show the quenching of a knife against. So after the quench, I cleaned them up a little bit on the belt grinder, and then I moved to hand sanding. I'll show just a quick excerpt of this, but literally spent 2 days doing nothing but getting these up to about a 2000 grit. There's a few defects still that I found that I couldn't quite grind out with this, but I was counting on the Damascus pattern to help hide that. And here they are polished with the handles glued on and getting ready for final shaping. Once the epoxy dried, and I actually gave it 24 hours before I did any of this, it's back to the grinding room to shape the handles. I spent about a day and a half doing this on the 3 knives, again, just because I wanted them to look nice, be comfortable, and really, pull out the pattern in the micarta as much as I could. So now the moment of truth, etching them. I did cover the handles in nail polish that I got donated by my lovely wife. Highly recommend not using anything with glitter in it. That was a little bit of a challenge to clean up later on. But as you can see, it protected the handles, and I think the pattern actually came out quite nice. Now, because these were gifts and I didn't want them to just end up being tossed into a knife drawer, I thought I'd put together a little stand just to hold them. So I took some oak that I had from a project, little pieces of maple, and then I made little maker mark stamps that I wanted to embed into the holder itself. I was going to nail them in with some handmade nails, but then I thought it might actually be better to mount them so they'd essentially be flush. Please like and subscribe, and thanks for watching. And remember, live for today, but build for tomorrow.